So it looks like we're almost done with our shot here. However, a lot of times, even when it looks like you're almost done, you're still going to have to go back and fix things. You might get a note from your supervisor or a client, or you might just see something when you're looking through the shot that you need to fix. So it's a great skill to have to be able to go back, reverse engineer things, and figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. So let's go through that process now. We're going to RAM preview this shot and take note of anything that still needs to be fixed to get this shot to final. I'm seeing a few things. Number one, these lower legs are looking way too dark and shaded. We've done a lot of good work here lightening things up, but these lower legs need a little bit more help to get them to final. Next, we got some edge problems. If you go back to frame 55, there's a particularly bad edge right here on the lower leg. So we're definitely going to have to take care of that. Next, I think there's also a problem with the hair. If you go to around here, you can see that there's an edge in the hair we have to fix. And then finally, if you look at this hand, there's no motion blur on it in these frames right around here. Frame 73, 74. Compare that to the original green screen, there's quite a bit of motion blur. So we're going to have to add back in some of this motion blur. So let's start by fixing these lower legs. Let's go to the original comp where we were adding the lighting fixes before, the Wizard Fix comp. Then we did that with an adjustment layer and exposure. So we can use the same technique to continue to adjust it just to get rid of these lower leg shadows. So let's make a new adjustment layer, under Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and we're going to draw a mask around the lower legs where they are in the composition. And let's scroll through it and make sure we're getting the lower legs throughout the shot. To move it over. That looks pretty good. Move this up a little bit. And then we're going to feather this to be about 50 feather. And then we're going to add our exposure effect to it. That's under Effects, Color Correction, Exposure. And we'll zoom in and carefully raise the exposure just enough to get rid of the shadows, but not too much. So let's increase it very slowly here. And I think about 773 looks right. We can also look at our levels here under the RGB. You can see it's about 0.5 up here under the red and 0.5 in the green. And down here it's also 0.5 and about right. And just eyeballing it too, turning it on and off. Looks like that's about right. Maybe a little bit less. Decrease it skosh to 0.65. And maybe a little bit more. 0.60. I think that looks good. Turn off the mask. And let's go to the render comp. And that's looking a lot better. Now these legs aren't as shaded as they were before. So now let's fix that edge. We're on frame 55. And here is our edge problem. So the way to find out what's causing the problem is just turning on and off layers and seeing which layer is causing the problem. So let's start with the first layer in the first composition, the light wrap layer. I turn it off and that solves the problem. It was the light wrap layer. So it looks like this light wrap layer is not doing us any favors down here by the lower leg. It's causing problems. So let's just mask it out around that area. Select the light wrap and our pen tool and just draw a mask down here below the door. We'll set that to subtract. Hit M, set mask to subtract, and we'll feather it. And we've gotten rid of our edge problem on the leg. So now we just have the edge problem on the hair. So let's go to where that was. I think it was towards the end here. We're on frame 62. Zoom in. Yes, I see it. Right around here, this strange edge in the hair. So it looks like this problem is probably going to be in our wizard comp where all of our matting is happening. So let's go to that composition. And we're doing the same technique of turning on and off layers until we find out which layer is causing the problem. Now, since some of these layers we're not going to use the eyeball to turn them on and off because that could get confusing because some of them are supposed to be turned off and some of them are supposed to be turned on. So instead of using that to turn them on off, we'll use the soloing effect. We're going to solo all the layers on and then unsolve them one by one and find out which layer is causing this problem. So watch the hair. It's not this layer, it's not this layer. Okay, let's move down to the next one down. Nope, not that one. Not that one. Moving down farther. Not necessarily that one. Let's move this up a little bit so I can see things. Ah, here it is. The core mat's causing the problem. See that? So let's just take this core mat and move it below all the other layers, and the problem disappears. It's still filling in the holes, but it's not causing this weird edge. So we can unsolo all our layers and go back to our render comp. And now we just have to add some motion blur to this hand, and we're all done. So let's find out where the motion blur needs to be added. I think it starts here in frame 70. We're going to use the hand tool to pan up here, and we'll compare this with the green screen. And see, we need to add some motion blur here. Hit page down to go forward a frame. Yep. So let's add so the way to add motion blur back here, we're going to use a technique where we add an adjustment layer with a directional blur effect. Just blur this these green screen pixels and match the original blur in the plate. So we can do that by creating a new adjustment layer. And let's call this adjustment layer motion blur adjustment layer. And we're going to apply a directional blur effect to it. That's under blur sharpen directional blur. Let's see where that is here. Is directional blur. And now we're just going to mask around the area that needs to be blurred. So if we turn on our green screen, you can see we need this edge and the lower arm need to be blurred. So I'll just draw a mask around those areas. And we'll feather that, turn off the green screen. Feathering this mask about 30, 27 or so. And now let's we're going to match the direction of this motion blur with the directional blur. So turn on the green screen, and we need to point up this way. So we'll change our directional angle to be this direction. Turn off the green screen. And let's take a snapshot of the green screen so we can go back and forth really quickly. Turn off the green screen, and we'll turn up the blur length a little bit, about 4.9. Turn off the mask visibility, and we'll compare the two. And that's looking pretty close. So let's set a key for the blur length, a key for the direction, and a key for the mask under the motion blur layer mask path. And then we'll turn the mask visibility back on, and we'll go forward a frame and adjust to match the movement of the hand. Let's turn off this motion directional blur effect for now so we can see what we're doing with the masking, and we'll turn it back on again, and we'll do that as a second step. So I have to just move it over a little bit. Okay, turn the directional blur back on. Looks good. Let's match it to the original green screen. Looks like it's matching pretty well. Maybe crank it up a little bit more. Let's crank this blur length up to about 6. Compare that to the green screen. That's looking more close. Move forward a frame. Turn off the directional blur. Adjust the mask to match the original green screen. Turn on the green screen to see what we need to do. Looks like we just need to blur around this lower arm, and we need to blur around the hand. Just adjusting the mask to just go around the pixels that need to be blurred. Okay, let's take a snapshot of this. Let's turn the green screen off and turn on the effect of motion blur, directional blur. Turn off the mask. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And let's go forward in the frame. I think we're almost done. Just a few frames. This might be the last frame we have to adjust. Turn on the green screen. Take a snapshot. Turn off the green screen. And compare. Looks actually, I think we can end this in the previous frame. So let's go back a frame, and we're going to end our motion blur adjustment layer on that frame. Frame 72. And we can go back to the first frame we started to animate and have it start in that frame, frame 70. So it's just a few frames, but it's adding a lot of nice realism and getting rid of some nasty edges. Nice. Oh, wait a second. There's a problem here. We're not just blurring the wizard, we're blurring the background too. So we need to apply this inside the wizard pre-comp. Let's go to frame 69, and we'll just cut this out by hitting Control X, go into wizard fix comp, paste in our adjustment layer. So now we're affecting it inside the pre-comp. Now we'll go back to the render comp, and now we're just blurring the wizard and we're not blurring the background. Problem solved. And our final problem is fixed that we had to do. So now you've learned how to reverse engineer, go back, and fix things in your comp.